Welcome to Watchfire Hobbies. This is a relaxed space for wargaming, hobby, painting, basing, and building at an easy pace. Grab a brush, settle in, and let's enjoy the process. So today for our Back to the Basics series, we're going to be doing this very fun, what I'm calling Tyranid scheme for the base. It utilizes super glue, Elmer's glue, and then just some stuff to really build up that second and third layer. This was my army I did kind of rushed basing scheme. I had to get it out before a team battle a couple of years ago, and I think it's time to upgrade it. So here, this does not have the rocks or the moss on it, but here's the upgraded version, combining that effect with the glue and the super glue, and then just adding some texture paste and giving it kind of a Tyranids infecting a planet look. So we're going to do this, but you can also just do this just by not adding the texture paste. So let's get started. For the first step in the first layer, you're just going to need basic Elmer's glue and non-gel super glue. The gel does not create the effect as much. So you come in. So first thing you want to do is just put on super glue. Kind of think of this in thirds, maybe a half. You don't really want to have this cover the entire base unless you're doing this model or showing a later stages infection of a planet. You know, I mean, if you guys have played Space Marine 2, you can see, you know, there's those scenes where you go through the jungle. That's kind of what I'm trying to capture, where the Tyranid growths are starting to infect the, you know, the planet and coming through the crust. So don't go too heavy on this. You know, you want to have it thick enough for the effect to work, but not too thick that it won't actually, you know, bubble up, right? So I'm just going to come in here with a texture tool, just smooth it out a little bit, you know, kind of get rid of some of the pockets. Again, this also creates a little texture, not that it's going to matter. This will dry pretty flat. And I'm deliberately leaving that nice little hole in there, which will be fun if we can, you know. So then we just come in, put a couple dots of super glue, really get that, you know, in there, and I'll show you the effect. So I try to do, you know, a couple dots each one. Don't really count, but, you know, judging by the size, as you can see, it's already starting to create little pockets there. Now this does take some time to dry. I usually let it sit overnight. I've seen it, you know, if you go too thick, it does take, you know, a little bit more, and you might actually have to poke the little, you know, the pustules that form. You might actually have to poke them to get it to dry inside. But let's let it sit overnight, and we'll come back. So as you can see, the base is dried. This is what I was talking about, where you have these pustules that form. That there's actually still wet glue inside here. So I just use my handy dandy texture tool, just pop it. They'll need a little extra time to dry, just to make sure that it dries clear. But for right now, what we're going to do next, we don't really need them to be super dry. We're going to come in with our texture paste, and we're going to, you know, do this kind of texture for these, you know, the more urban bases. If you want to go with the classic style where it doesn't have any of this and it's just flat, you can skip this part. I'll put a time link hopefully in the video, and you can skip right to this where we just do the painting. But for now, we're just going to use our texture paste, you know, and really try to be here, just get it just off to the side. You do want a little bit of this, you know, hard. It's going to become like the chitin area. We'll just come in with our texture paste, you know, spread it out, and make sure when you're spreading it out, you kind of pop it up a little bit. And there we go. So now we're just going to come back in and let this dry. We will just paint it all black, and then we'll start working just on paint and getting the space done. Okay, so now that we let that dry, we're going to come in here and just base the entire of the textured area with just black. We're going to come in and do the, you know, the pustule areas more with the theme of the army, which I think is Incubi Darkness. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just using an old craft brush for this. This is just Abaddon black. Now you can cover the actual pustules with it. It's not needed because they're going to get a different effect, but This is kind of my standard effect for concrete, rubble, like that. It's very similar to what we used in the asphalt video. So just paint this up and we'll be right. So for our next step, we're going to just hit all of the, what we're going to call the rubble, the city fight area, this area, with just Mechanicus standard gray. Just a quick dry brush here. This is very similar to what we did with our asphalt bases. Just trying to create a little bit of color there. If you get a little bit on the Tyranid areas, it's not focusing. If you get a little bit on the Tyranid, what I'm calling the Tyranid areas, it's not going to matter as much. We are going to be painting those after. That's why I'm doing this quick dry brush. Okay. So this is going to be adding this white layer. You know, this little bit, just a little touch up, just to really make it, you know, really the peaks stand out. And again, we're doing a very light dry brush on this, just really trying to catch those peaks. I always do like doing the edge of the base with this. You know, as I said with the asphalt base, this gives it, I call it the salt look. You know, for any of us in northern climates where, you know, your road really gets salty. There you go. I mean, that was, like I said, that was very simple. And then now we're going to come in here, paint up some Incubi Darkness back on the infection. So now we're going to paint up the, what is the infection or the contamination area. I'm doing this very similar to the color, the carapace color I painted for my Tyranids. So if you already have a Tyranid army and you want to do this, paint it your carapace armor. Kind of shows that it's growing out. I'm using Incubi Darkness from the GW range. We're just going to be very careful and just try to get just the areas. We don't want to get any of that, you know, any of that actual texture we just painted up. So once this dries, we'll just hit all these marks with dry brush of orange. Again, which matches the, you know, the claws on my Tyranids and the highlights. And then, so I hit that with orange, and then just put a little bit, I think we're just going to put the sprig of moss. We're not going to avoid the rocks. And then this base will be done. So now we're going to come in. We're just going to quickly dry brush all of these, you know, these kind of marks. And then this base is almost done. All we have to do after that is add the sprig of moss. Like I said, just be very careful as you can see. Oh, as you can see, I kind of missed a little bit there. Again, in the grand scheme of things, not going to matter. But just try to be very, you know, careful. I can go touch it back up. I probably won't. I mean, especially not for this one because this is a display base or a test base. But we'll just quickly hit those. Make sure you try to get all the little nooks and crannies inside. It really changes. I apologize, the focus keeps drifting out. But yeah, we'll take a look at it when it's done. And see, this is how it will look. And if I didn't say it, this is the burning orange from War Paints. I just like it comes, you know, in a bottle. It comes a little bit easier to use than the GW one. So as you can see here, this really does show our three layers. You have the one, layer one is kind of this blue carapace looking part. Layer 2 is the mixture of the, you know, texture paste. The painted texture paste really looks like a city fight and these orange pustules. Then layer 3 is this, it's called, I believe it's called sprig of moss. I bought a huge batch of it years ago when I was doing an Ideneth army to use as coral. But we're just going to pull a couple parts off, glue it on, kind of sticking to the areas where it would make sense to be growth coming from the Tyranid infection. So we just take a little bit. You know, grab with a tweezers, a little dot of super glue. So just put a little dot, you know, and this, you know, you don't have to be super careful with this, but, you know, try to get it right there and try to have the, I don't know, what you would call it, like the plant parts, the multiple little pieces sticking up. What is nice with this, there's definitely different textures, different sizes. You get parts that are a little thicker, kind of look like almost tree trunkish. So I can just use that super glue there. You know, just have it, you know, pop up. This really creates just that height. And so, a couple pieces on each one. Then you should be good to go. And so there you go. There's the three, you know, three little bits. That definitely gives you that 3 levels. You know, so you can definitely see the distinction. If you want to go with what I call the classic style and these rocks, these are glow-in-the-dark rocks from Michaels, I got them during the Halloween time of the year. They're nice, but they're clearly just glow-in-the-dark rocks. I think this, base looks much better. And it's probably what I'm going to have to rebase my entire 2,000 plus Tyranid force with. Really looking forward to that, actually. It's going to be super fun. Probably months of work, because Tyranid Horde army rebasing is going to be super fun. Maybe I will do a painting video of how I do my actual Tyranids, while I'm doing that. Well, let me know what you guys would use this base for. Like I said, Tyranids. I'm thinking maybe, Chaos Knights, making these like kind of nurgly looking pools would all be good ideas. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But thanks for spending some of your hobby time with me today. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.